Hello and welcome to Everything End of Life with me, Jason Cottrell, and guests. Today I have the pleasure of talking to my wife. We do it all the time, but this is specifically about the podcast. So I want to see, how do you think the podcast is going, Debbie?
I think it seems to be going really well. I mean, there's a variety there, something for everyone, and you can dip in and out as you like. Quite good.
Yeah, I think the first one was with Becky Ricks, and that was good. People are saying that they found that very useful very reassuring, because we know now what it actually looks like that last 4 weeks at the end of life, so roughly. And she was actually a very good person to interview, very easy.
Yeah.
To talk to.
And having just lost my dad earlier this year, it's actually, it highlights how much you don't know until you're kind of faced with the realisation that somebody is actually going to die. And you don't understand all the ramifications that brings if they want to die at home.
Yeah, it's a very personal thing, isn't it? And so then we had Lee Joshak, who was talking about Freedom Funerals and what they do and what the various options there are. And I thought that was really enlightening, because there was so much stuff there I didn't know, never really thought about.
No, absolutely. And, again, with my dad, we never even considered doing something alternative rather than just going down the traditional route. It was almost like that's the default that you go to, rather than thinking about what other options there might be. And I think, didn't he do it for a pet as well?
Yes, he did, yeah.
About that?
I think it was a hamster that died, and he did it for free. He just made a little coffin and did the whole 9 yards with the car and all that sort of thing for free. I mean, what a great guy.
Absolutely. That's just really impressive, and just shows that in that moment when you need people, quite often they step up and they help you.
Yeah.
Give you their,
And then, of course, we had Dr. Karen Chumley talking about hospices. And as a former child nurse, I should know about hospices, you would have thought. But I didn't. And I think there's lots of nurses out there, lots of doctors, who just don't really get what a hospice does and what it's there for.
No, I think ultimately you think that the options are very limited in terms of, how you die and where you die. It's either hospital, which is you think is the more traditional route, but actually Dad, as you know, did not want to go to hospital.
Yeah.
So, and he was probably too poorly to have gone to a hospice, I think. I'm not sure whether he would have appreciated that either, but I think he certainly would have benefited from the VW at St Helena's, where they go in and they actually help patients and their families in their home. And I think my mum would have really, that would have really helped her.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the VW at St Helena's, the virtual ward. So it's like hospice at home. And just got to make clear that this whole podcast is not about St Helena, but it's really handy having them sitting on the doorstep, so I can just draw from their experiences and their knowledge, which is cool.
And we wouldn't have known anything about them actually.
No.
Until you started working for them, and we realised that that's what they did. It's not. I don't think it's really widely known that can happen.
No, I mean, even when we talked to our friend about who already was working there, we didn't really kind of quite get it, really, because the hospice wasn't. It's not widely known. Amazingly, they do an incredible amount of advertising and fundraising and etc. But it's always worth trying to get the word out for what hospices can actually do. So on that note, we've been through some of the technical stuff, and I think it's now time to bring it home. So that my next interview is with Di Renders, who lost her husband Roger about a year ago, and she's going to tell her story about how that was for her.
Yeah, obviously it's a very personal experience, isn't it, losing somebody that close to you, and everybody's experience is different, and actually it just gives you more understanding, having been through it. Then you can kind of identify with other people that experience it and how their experience might be different to yours. Yeah,
I mean, it was a bit rough for us, I think, for this beginning of this year, losing your dad and losing my sister straight off the bat. That was a bit tricky. But let's have a listen to Di, who's a lovely lady, and you're going to really enjoy her story. So, hello, Di. Thank you very much for coming along to talk about your personal journey with Roger. So he died at home after a relatively short illness last year. But before we get to that bit, how did you meet? And what did that look like? Did he schmoozle you? Was it love at first sight? Tell us a bit about that time at first encounter.
We met in a supermarket of all places, and I think it was love at first sight for me. But he was the one that made the first move.
Oh, I see.
Very charming, always a charmer, bless him.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just were meant to be. We were compatible, and I believe that we were destined to be together.
Yeah. So you got together just after a short romance, shall we say?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
But during that time, something fairly terrible happened for you.
Yeah, I lost my son Gary, who was 17. He was in a car accident.
Yeah.
Helicoptered to Addenbrooke's Hospital, which he managed to hang on for 2 days, and then
Gone.
yeah, he gave up. But he was so injured that he wouldn't have been able to have a normal life anyway. So in a way, it's a blessing. And I had Roger at the time. He was the only thing that would get me through.
Right. Because that must have just been unbelievably painful.
It was. If I hadn't have had Roger by my side, I wouldn't be here today.
Right.
No,
Okay.
absolutely.
Oh, well, yeah. So, when did Roger get his diagnosis?
Right, in 2017, he had a persistent cough, and we went to the doctors, and he sent him to a specialist, ear, nose and throat. And we went there, and the guy put a camera down and said, no, can't see anything. He said, but while I'm here, I don't normally do this, but I'll take an x-ray. And then 2 days later, we got called back saying, can you come back now? After something's shown up. And he wasn't qualified enough to tell us what it was, but little nodules on his lungs.
Yeah.
So he was referred on the cancer pathway 2 week. And basically, the consultant turned around and said, you've got lung cancer.
Was it that abrupt?
Yes.
So not much in the way of bedside manner there?
No.
Didn't couch it or anything?
So she said, right, we'll send you to Papworth for a biopsy straight away. And he went to Papworth, had the biopsy, and then later on that day got a phone call saying, good news, it's not lung cancer.
Okay.
But we think it's something called vasculitis. Now, he'd been under a consultant at Colchester Hospital for vasculitis, or it was linked to his arthritis. But the consultant got so annoyed that Colchester Hospital were taking so long to get any tests or anything done. He phoned and said, would you mind me sending you to Addenbrooke's?
Okay.
Which was great because Addenbrooke's are one of the leading hospitals in vasculitis. So, yeah, we went there, everything was fine until one day in 2018, he was sat there and all of a sudden he couldn't breathe.
Right. Scary.
Yeah. So I took him down to the surgery and got met with, you need an ambulance, but I'm going home now, so you'll have to do it yourself, which I just put him in the car and thought, right, take him straight there.
Yeah.
He spent 2 days in Colchester Hospital, but because they didn't know what they were dealing with, and we told them he was under Addenbrooke's, Addenbrooke's transferred him to there, which was good because if he hadn't, they saved his life basically.
Right.
Because he'd had a pulmonary embolism in his lungs and total respiratory failure.
Okay.
So he was in Addenbrooke's 5 weeks in intensive care and then 2 weeks on the ward.
Right. Now, I knew Roger briefly.
Yep.
He had a brilliant sense of humour.
He did.
Is that something that helped get you both through that particular time?
Absolutely, because he would just laugh about everything.
Yeah.
He would say, right, well, I better do this now in case I die tomorrow. That was his way of dealing with it. His sense of humour was amazing. But I think you needed that. Otherwise, you would just be totally miserable all the way through.
Yeah. I mean, it is something... Did you actually talk about what was going to happen at the end of life? Or did he just not want to face that?
Not at that time.
Not at that time.
Because he was determined determined to get himself well,
Yeah.
which he really did. He weaned himself off the oxygen.
Yeah.
He managed to live, I wouldn't say a normal life, because he did get out of breath if it was cold or windy.
Right.
But he did really, really well until the beginning of last year.
Okay.
And because the treatment for vasculitis is chemotherapy based, that meant his immune system was nothing. He picked up everything going. And in February last year was the start of many, many infections. And in the end, his body just couldn't
Couldn't cope with it.
No.
So there came a time where the hospice got involved, or hospice care got involved.
Yeah, I think it was the GP
Okay.
that told me about it, because Roger was I'm not being in hospital kind of guy.
Yeah.
If anything's going to happen, I want it at home. And Debbie came round to meet him, and
Debbie Vincent?
yes,
was that?
Debbie
Yeah.
Vincent from the
Bless her.
hospice. And she arranged carers to come in the next day.
Right.
And it was only supposed to be for 4 weeks, but
Yeah.
somehow it extended to 4 months.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it did go on a bit, didn't it?
Well, yeah.
Like did Roger, in fact, which was nice.
Yeah. But Debbie told me later that when she'd seen him, she didn't expect him to last the week.
No, because he was in a very bad way.
He was in a really bad way.
And, but he kind of rallied a little bit.
He did really, really well. But one of the problems with catching infections was he used to get C. diff a lot.
Okay, so C. diff?
Yeah, C. diff is like an infection of the stomach and the bowel.
Okay, right.
And basically he lost his appetite
Yeah.
and he just dramatically lost weight. He was living on build-up drinks mostly.
Yeah, I remember when I first came to him, it was just on, I can't remember, not 46, the other one.
Yeah, 46.
46, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So it must be strange to have had people coming into the house and helping him to wash and do his personal care.
He
and
was a
things.
very independent person.
Yeah.
And at first he was really against it. He kept saying, "You can tell them not come today. I'm all right. I don't need them." But what I tried to explain to him was that I needed the carers as much as he needed them, because they were my support.
Yeah.
And God did they support me. I wouldn't have got through it without you all.
Oh, they're a good bunch, aren't they?
They're
Bless them.
amazing.
So then there came the time when the profiling bed came in.
Yeah.
So he'd got to a point where he couldn't really stand so well?
Well,
or-
yeah, he was having trouble getting from the bedroom
Yeah.
through to the bathroom or through to the lounge.
Yeah.
But again, Roger being Roger, he used it for a couple of weeks and then said, "No, I'm going to go back to my bed. I want to be normal. I want to do normal things." So he went back in our bed for about maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But then he was getting so weak that he just couldn't manage to walk around.
Right. So this was pre the pub visit, was it?
Yes, it was pre the pub visit.
So this was when Junie and I were able to just about get Roger into the car and get him down the pub for a
Well, yeah, it took a while, didn't it?
Yeah.
But he enjoyed that so much. That's all he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
as
he
it
fell
likes.
asleep, bless him. And it wiped him out for the next 3 days.
Hey, yeah.
But, I'm so grateful to you for doing
Oh, no, don't be grateful. But it was lovely to see him, in that environment and to get the photos and have a big old smile on his face.
Absolutely.
That was amazing. But then he started to become more and more unresponsive. So being asleep more often than awake. And eventually he just didn't wake up. And you were on your own for that.
Yes,
right?
yeah, I was, yeah.
What did that look like?
It was strange because he was on the syringe driver at that time.
Yeah.
Which basically means, it's coming to an end. And the district nurse had just been in to change the meds in the driver.
Yeah.
She just left and I just knew. I sat and held his hand and he just gave 3 last gulps of breath,
Yeah.
and then nothing.
But he had been on the syringe driver for a while, hadn't he?
About 10 to 14 days,
10 to
I think.
14 days.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that regulates the medication,
Yeah.
so he can't swallow.
But he wasn't sort of responsive much in the last week.
Right.
He slept a lot,
Yeah.
a real lot, yeah.
And I remember when that day when it did happen, that probably, I don't know how many carers turned up. And
4
relatives.
carers and Becky, the
Yeah.
nurse, and then friends and everybody just
Yeah.
to, you know.
The house was just humming with activity. for
It
some
was so
reason.
nice because it meant to me that Roger had touched everyone's hearts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
He was a lovely fella.
he was.
So, after Roger died, you must have been on your own for long periods of time. That must have been really hard because you'd been joined at the hip,
Yeah,
hadn't you, for years and years,
yeah.
married.
We did everything together. So being on my own was very, very strange.
How was that first couple of weeks?
Awful.
Awful. Yeah.
Or I think I cried most of it.
Yeah.
It's just the loneliness. I was so used to being there for him 24/7,
Yeah.
and then it goes to nothing, and you just feel a bit helpless and lost.
And I guess having people coming in twice a day and
Yeah.
neighbours and everything, and then it just, as you say, it just stops.
Yeah, and I honestly, looking back now, don't know how I got through it.
No.
I really don't.
It's a strange thing, isn't it? I mean, for me, when I lost my mother, I've looked after her for a long time. And here we are 20 years later, I can't remember organising the funeral. I can't remember the days after. I can't remember any of it. It's just a big old blank, you know. I do remember saying to me, sitting in bed and saying, because you couldn't use her hands, roll me a fag, there's a dear. Because that was an enduring memory. But yeah, so it's funny the things that we do remember, you know, years later. But so, you know, things have progressed and the funeral happened.
Well, there wasn't a funeral because he didn't.
No,
want
it was
one.
it wasn't a funeral, was it? It was
No.
a bit down the pub, I seem to recall. Was
Well,
it a
no,
meal?
we haven't done that yet either.
Yeah.
His instructions were no funeral, but a party at the pub.
Okay.
And I haven't felt ready to do that yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a tricky one sometime.
It will be sometime, yes, but, you know, he'll tell me when the time's right. He's still watching over me.
You still talk to him, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, every day. Every day.
I guess you, because it was such a hard thing, you got some help, some counselling?
Yeah, I mean, the hospice have been there since day one and they're still there if I need them now.
Yeah.
I had some counselling at the hospice, but at the time, because it was relatively shortly after his death, they didn't think it would do that much good. And looking back, I can see that now. I did have some counselling through work recently, and that has really, really helped. The hospice did contact me again and say, you know, you can have some more sessions, but at the time, I don't think I was in the right frame of mind to bring it all up again.
Right, yeah.
I got through what I'd got through with the counselling, and I was in a better place than I was, so I didn't want to bring it all back up again.
Yeah.
But I know in the future, if I need them, they'll be there.
Yeah, they will, yeah. Okay, so I know you're working now,
Yeah.
and that helps fill some time, and you've got a mad cat.
Yes.
Who was a kitten when we first
Yeah,
met.
we got him the day that the carers started.
Yeah.
So he's grown up with you lot as well. But work is distraction,
Yeah.
and I've got amazing neighbours and friends who keep me busy.
Yeah.
And I've also, I was supposed to do a skydive on Saturday, but they postponed because of the weather.
Hey.
So it's now going ahead in a couple of weeks' time, and that's to raise money for the hospice.
Hey, I couldn't throw myself off a shelf, let alone have an aeroplane. I think that's just crazy. But, you know, I'm looking forward to you telling me all about that. That'll be fine sometime.
Yeah, 30th of July I'm doing it now,
30th of July.
weather permitting. Yeah.
Okay. And going forward, what's your plans?
going forwards, I've got this vision in my head that I am going to work in some way with the hospice.
You want to do that?
I do. I don't know which way yet, but it's there.
Don't do our jobs, too much driving. It's just nuts out there. But there we go. Well, listen, it's been lovely talking to you again, Di. And thanks very much for sharing your story with us.
You're
and
welcome.
and a big hello to Rog, wherever you are, mate.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Lovely lady. And I'm sure many of you here will identify with lots of what Di has been through. So next week, I'm looking to talk to Katie Billimore about a particular department in St Helena, which is called Single Point. Single Point is just a fascinating place to me because it is what it says on the tin. It is one place where you can ring if you're a relative and you're worried about your patient, your loved one, as they're going through these stages. They're the ones that will get a doctor out to you, or come out themselves if it's a nurse-related issue, and they're there to give just brilliant advice. It's a call centre like no other. So I look forward to that. And here we are, the end of 4 podcasts so far, and many more to come. See you next week.